Hey everyone, this is Sanyara Jones. I hope that you are doing well. And the purpose of this video is that we're going to talk a little bit about development and the importance of it. If you have been listening to my podcast and have joined me on, I believe that was last week's blab about iron sharpening iron and the importance of development. I'm going to be kind of riding that train for a little while until Holy Spirit tells me otherwise. So, and the purpose of, like I said, this video, I saw this particular question on the Musicians in the Gospel Ministry Facebook page, and it was posted by Brother Garrett Ginyard, and he is a former podcast guest on the Worship Builders podcast. Brother Garrett is a man of wisdom, a seasoned musician, and an entrepreneur. He and his wife Joycelyn own a music studio, and I think it's outside of Atlanta, Georgia, but it's called G Minor Studios. So if you're in the Georgia area, the Atlanta, Georgia suburb-ish area, make sure you check it out, gminorstudios.com. But the question was, if a keyboard/organ player is getting paid, and even though he or she isn't the lead musician, should they be required to be able to hold down a service by themselves if the music ministry leader is out? Or should the ministry look to hire a fill-in for the service? And so I saw this question, I just started to laugh a little bit. But I thought this was a great opportunity to talk about some things because although this is a good question, if our ministries were set up in excellence, these questions shouldn't have to come up. So I have three particular points that I wanted to address regarding Brother Garrett's question. So, but I guess to answer his question, in an ideal situation, I will say yes. I think that musician should, yes, it's on should, be able to run the service if the music ministry leader is out, particularly because that music ministry leader should have the ability to take off, to rest, to be filled, receive a word, and things of that nature. But however, in most situations, the secondary musician is not prepared to lead a service. And this is what I came up with. Point one, the ability to hold down a service. I guess if you're looking at it from a surface level, is it really a musician thing? It's really a leadership thing. And I say that because there are a lot of musicians out here that are highly skilled in playing their instrument, right? But every musician isn't called to music ministry leadership. If you kind of want to compare it to something, if you are in a church where there's, apostolic or prophetic church, you believe in the fact that everybody has the ability to prophesy. However, there is a gift of the prophetic and governmental office of the prophet. It's kind of the same thing. Although you have musicians, right? Musicians and music ministry leaders are all kind of in that same little bowl, but music ministry leaders, that's a different realm of leadership and experience besides a musician. So every musician isn't qualified to be a leader. And if you really wanted to take that holding down a service up a notch to a spiritual realm, that's a totally different situation as well, because we're talking about prophetic flow and listen for, what the Holy Spirit is saying regarding how he wants their service to go forth. Okay, so that's number one. And second thing is the importance of succession, right? We're all human, and it is not guaranteed that we're going to live tomorrow. So what's going to happen to your music ministry leaders, if something happens to you tomorrow, God forbid. And I think a lot of, I'm pretty sure when we are, in our positions as music ministry leaders, we really don't think about those things, about the importance of development and knowing who's in your music ministry, who's under you, discerning those abilities in those people and what they have, and who would be fitting for that position if and when something, happens to you. Life happens to everybody. When I was in my former church and we were under a dynamic music ministry leader, when it was his time to transition, he took a hiatus, a sabbatical. And I didn't ask him, but I knew that he was about to transition. You could just kind of tell. But and this is kind of the same thing pertaining to that question, because I have a music degree, and I also teach. So a lot of people assume, especially in my situation, that because I was a teacher, that I was assumed a leader, and I was assumed to have the skill to take over a music ministry. And what ended up happening, because I had the mentality of, Will has trained us so well, to do whatever we needed to do between the warm-ups, everything. It was just laid out perfectly. But as soon as he left, it just all went psh. It was like everybody said, we're going to take this stuff off, we'll party and do what we want to do. And I was looking around like, what? Right? So, saying all that to say, I think, especially in that particular instance, he and I had a heart-to-heart to say, Sonia, this is what's happening. This is what I feel, should be. Things that just really being transparent about the succession and the plan for our church afterwards, and just giving me a nugget of wisdom and advice, which, unfortunately did not happen. I feel like if that had happened, we probably would have been in a better place. I would have been in a better place to prepare and better prepared to receive what would have happened after he had left. So saying all that to say, one, if you don't have proper systems in your music ministry, procedures in place for every level, for the choir, for the musicians, so forth, then expect it to crumble, and expect undeveloped, unprepared people to be under you. And that's a fallback on the leader. Right? If you're coming into an assignment, you got to make sure that you're thinking long term about taking the pastor's vision of that house, applying it to the music ministry, and what that means for the music ministry, and then taking that vision forward. And secondly, never leave your team or your assignment the same way as when you joined it. Right? So, especially for me, when it was time for me to leave my church, I wanted to make sure that I left with capable people to carry on the needs of the house. Period. So when I left, I made sure that there was a capable minister of music and a capable pianist to do whatever needed to be done. People that were willing, that had experience in, teaching and things of that magnitude. Regardless if, the choir received it, that's really not on me. That's not on me, because I knew going out that I had the peace knowing that I did my part as a leader. I didn't want them to leave them in a situation where they were, desperate and they couldn't find anybody and they were just picking up Joe Blows off the street. I was not going to let that happen. And I didn't let that happen. I feel like I didn't let that happen. So, music ministry leaders, if you don't have a succession plan in place, get one in place now. Get one in place immediately so you won't leave God's house in disarray. And number 3 is, again, the importance of development. Music ministry leaders, again, you have to know your team. You have to know who's under you. And if you are in a position of hiring people, you got to know who you're hiring. Just because they're a beast on the instrument does not make them a leader. Doesn't. And if you're not hiring leaders, and first of all, we could talk about contracts and stuff all day long, but if they're not qualified and it's not in their skill set to lead, then, dude, that's manipulation and abuse. You can't sit there and hold somebody to a contract to something that they can't fulfill. And I hope in that person, that candidate that's being interviewed, that they're honest and saying, you know what, I can't do this. I'm not in a spot to fulfill this as of right now. And if you're a music ministry leader and you have different obligations and you're going to be absent at times, you got to make sure that you pick somebody that has those skills in place so you can easily transition and the ministry will continue to go forth. Right? So know your team. Are your people capable of leading? Know who you're hiring. And then lastly, what are you learning? Leader, what are you learning? Because if you're not teachable and if you don't have a hunger for learning on a consistent basis, you have nothing to give to your ministry. If you're not, being fed, you have nothing to share with your people. It's kind of like with breastfeeding, right? If you're giving birth to a child and if you're eating hamburgers, right, your baby's going to have hamburger in the milk, right? Hamburger's probably not a healthy choice, but if you're, eating healthy, like with Gyra, my biological youngest, he's number 4 out of the 5. I eat broccoli with him like all the time. And so just naturally, whatever I eat, he's going to receive, right? My 14-year-old, I ate seafood the majority of my pregnancy with him. And unfortunately, he developed an allergy because I ate so much seafood. So what am I trying to say? Whatever you put in your ear gates and your eye gates is going to come out, whether it's healthy nourishment or whether it's garbage. So you have a responsibility, music ministry leader, to make sure that you are being properly developed. Okay? That's your responsibility to make sure that you're doing it. And if you know you're not being developed, please ask somebody for some assistance, whether it's your pastor or another seasoned musician. That's why we have our Facebook groups. Hopefully that you'll know somebody that's close to you in your area, something beyond the shed that you can actually learn and glean from. We just don't have enough conferences where we're actually talking about music ministry leadership, right? And we need more of those. So in summary, like I said, the church shouldn't have to hire anyone if they would, one, invest in development, right? So for all my pastors, same thing goes with you. If you don't have a music ministry leader in place, this will be a good time for you to network with your other pastors and try to get, some connections established. That way you'll have, a pool of candidates to choose from. But first and foremost, pray and ask God for the strategy and what type of music ministry leader needs to be in your house. Because not only does that music ministry leader need to be skilled musically, but they also need to be saved and have a spiritual understanding of the needs of that house, so they can carry out the vision properly. And second of all, the church shouldn't have to hire anyone if they would have leaders. Well, leaders will share with their members, right? If leaders would share with their members, they wouldn't have to, hire anyone. And like I said, that's saying before about the importance of development and succession. If you develop your ministry members properly, you'll have plenty of sixth men like in the NBA, right? Just to come on and join the team and take care of the needs of the house, right? If your musician can't do it without you, then you are failing him or her, right? Kind of the same thing with parenthood, because our children range from 16, 15, 14, 10, and 7. And especially by the time we blink our eyes good, our oldest 3 are going to be out of the house. And if they are outside acting a monkey, it's me and Rico's fault that they're out there doing whatever, because we didn't properly develop them. Same thing here with music ministry. If your musicians aren't growing personally, if they don't have a developed prayer life, and things of that magnitude, you need to take a look at yourself, ministry leader, and make sure that you're not just talking it, but you're walking it as well. Okay, so I hope that this has blessed you. Feel free to leave comments in the comments section. This will be on YouTube as well as on Facebook. And I believe I'm going to try to post it on my blog as well. Check me out, SoniaRJones.com. Facebook, Sonia R. Jones. Instagram, I'm Worship Builders. And on Twitter, I'm SR Jones 14. So take care, you guys. Be blessed.